Welcome into another edition of Mixing a Water Monday. We are joined today by former Gamecock quarterback Michael Scarnecchia, who you can hear throughout the season on the GC Live post-game show. He'll be rotating with former quarterback Perry Orth. Mike, you were on yesterday with me, and we had a chance to talk a lot about what we saw against Georgia. Now, let's just call a spade a spade. Not a lot of positives to take away from this, but later on in this segment, we will talk about some of the good because there was some good, believe it or not. We'll dig into that. But let's just talk about the offense. Not a lot to really talk about other than the fact that from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, it just seems like this offense just is not taking that next step you'd like to see them do at this point.
Yeah, completely. With the quarterback that we have in Spencer Rattler, we should be able to throw the ball and drive down against any team in the nation. Marshawn Lloyd and Juju in the backfield, we should have more offensive production with them. One thing I noticed on a positive note is when Juju came in, there were some sparks. He got those 10-yard gains. He got some catches and was able to make things happen when there weren't holes. Marshawn, one positive I saw he was fired up when he hit a couple big runs. Now they were, too far and few between, but when they were there, you saw the passion these guys had. They want to keep continually. So we got to find ways to get them in, a way where they can succeed in the run game. But another thing is too, we have 2 fantastic tight ends and we're not utilizing them. You have Bell and Stogner. I think Bell had 1 catch and Stogner had 1 catch. And it's like, I don't know what's happening because it's hard always to see from the sidelines or in the stands to see exactly what's going on downfield. And we don't know exactly the play calls, but when you have those 2 guys, you have to find ways to get them the ball. And so I think going forward, these next 2 weeks, we got to scheme around that and make sure these guys are getting balls because there are some of our best catchers and they're some of our biggest players who can make plays. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah, looking at the stats offensively, 214 yards passing, 92 yards rushing. Some of those stats are a little misleading because Georgia had their backups in towards the end. And, give credit to Luke Doty and the guys that came in there and made the most out of their opportunities to prevent the shutout at least. Mike, naturally, I wouldn't even say naturally, we're just to a point, even though it's been 16 games in to the Shane Beamer era. Yeah. A lot of people are not happy with the play calling. And this goes back to even last season with the offensive coordinator, with Marcus Satterfield. We talked about it after the game, but what would you tell people on the outside that would like to see a change right now? And just kind of the process, what it's like internally as a player at this point of the year when you are trying to figure out, okay, hey, look, we're 3 games in, tough schedule. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. So, okay, let's put that to the side.
Yeah.
Faceless opponents, right? 1-2. You're 1-2 right now. You don't think it would be a good idea, though, to move on from an OC at this point, at least. And why is that?
There's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is you're year 2 with a new OC, a new quarterback, year 1. These guys are getting familiar with each other. They're trying to help each other out. Satterfield's definitely trying to game plan around the quarterback he has. And so, one, if we do fire him, who are we going to pick up? There's no OCs right now in the nation who would leave their jobs middle of the season to come here and install a new offense. And it'd be a risk to fire him and promote within. Why not just keep Satterfield at that point? Because it's too much of a risk. The second thing is, again, like I was saying earlier, is these guys are still learning. When you get more comfortable in an offense and knowing what the offensive coordinator is calling, you see what he's trying to do, and it helps you as a quarterback because you know where he wants you to go with the ball because he, along with you, have studied the film. He's studied the statistics of what they run on certain down and distances and certain quarters. And so when you start trusting each other between a QB and an offensive coordinator, sometimes you do see more offensive production. You see that step forward a QB may take. And so we may see that in the second half of the season. And I hope we do. I hope Spencer gets more comfortable with Rattler and Satterfield gets more comfortable and cohesive with Rattler and finding out what works best for getting Rattler successful in the passing game. And if those 2 guys can figure that out, especially in these next 2 weeks, which should be easy games for us to win, that could help us carry forward in the SEC play that's going to really matter for this season.
And I know some people are listening to this be like, Mike, did you see the game against Georgia State that Charlotte just put up? Hey, look, give Charlotte credit. They ran a They ran their game plan to a T, and they were able to find a way to get the win. And certainly it will be a tougher challenge, but at the end of the day, you should be able to take care of Charlotte. That's a team you should be able to beat. I don't care how banged up South Carolina is. We know that they had 5 starters out on defense. They had another starter out on offense. You should be able to take care of Charlotte. Mike, piggybacking off of that, what would you like to see South Carolina do more of? I know you mentioned on the post-game show utilizing the middle of the field a little bit more.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing. Utilizing the middle of the field, a lot of times in my eyes, I'm picturing that with the tight ends. These guys, they can get open over the middle of the field. So that, in my eyes, I'm seeing that as a way to find ways to get them open. I would love to see that. I would love to see us find. Of course, I say this, and I know me and you always joke about how it's cliche to say, but an identity. Are we going to be a run-heavy team? Are we going to be a air-it-out team? Are we going to be take a deep shot more frequently and try and be a riskier team on offense? And I think we need to find that identity in knowing whether they're going to be a mixed balance pass run or what we are as an offense. Are we going to be focusing on RPOs, stuff like that? And that's something that the offensive coordinator, the coaching staff, and Rattler and all those guys will figure out these next 2 weeks. But I would love to see us establish the run game. We need to get good with that. You're not going to win SEC games without run games. Rushing under 100 yards it's not good. We need to up that up. The next thing I would love to see is obviously getting some production from our tight ends and seeing it over the middle of the field, get passes over there that it's open. Georgia was doing it against us. There's no reason why we can't do it against other teams. And the last thing I want to see is more turnovers. Our defense needs to start producing more turnovers. We need to start winning that battle, especially going into the second half of the season, because that's going to be a lot of the dictating factor, or the main dictating factor for whether we are going to win a lot of these SEC play games.
It's funny you mentioned turnovers, Mike. The last 2 games, South Carolina -6. They've been 3 turnovers each game. They have not produced a turnover.
That's bad
on defense. One thing, too, I want to be able to mention about this, because you look at these games, right, that are coming up. You got Charlotte, SC State. And when you look at the schedule that they've already had with Georgia State, obviously week 1, but then Arkansas, the Georgia matchup this past weekend. Not easy by any means. You played for 2 different head coaches. You had Spurrier, you had Muschamp. What would go on that week following a game like this, especially going up against an opponent like Georgia? So what I'm trying to get at is this. It's not trying to look at it from a moral victory standpoint. The game is the game. Okay, you lost. But at the same time, too, you go up against a team that on paper, okay, they're a superior team. And then you go out there on the field and let's just put it as bluntly as we can. They kick your teeth in. How do you regroup, though, so you don't let this game snowball into another week, right, of negativity, and you try to just block out the outside noise right now?
Yeah, so I think this, of course, comes down to the culture and identity that Beamer's trying to create within his organization. You got to talk to your guys and be like, you guys need to look in the mirror, both as a staff and as players, and figure out who you are as an individual. Are you going to be a person that's going to regroup and fight the rest of the season? Because the season is still very alive. We're only 3 games in. We have 9 more to go. And a lot of them are very winnable games. So this is going to be the turning point of your team as in a coaching staff, to look and see who your leaders are in the or within the team, because you're going to see some guys step up because they were so sick of what just happened this past week, and they're going to work harder and they're going to hold the players more accountable. Or we can see the other way, and these players are going to be down on themselves and they're not going to have the confidence going into the second half. But with what at least I know and what I've seen and talked about with other people within the Beamer culture, I think we're going to see more guys who are going to step up as those leaders and hold each other more accountable, because they realize now, after Arkansas and Georgia, where their flaws are, where they're weak at, and how much they need to improve if they want to compete in the SEC East.
I know some people are going to be like, all right, is anyone going to talk about the defense? We'll talk about the defense. Why not? Let's talk about the defense right now, because look, another game where they allow over 200 yards rushing. I think the big thing for me, Mike, the reason why I'm more concerned about the offense right now than the defense is because they were down 5 starters. They're going to certainly be down 2 starters for the remainder of the year with Mokaba out and Jordan Strawn. But I think maybe that's why I'm just like, okay, I have at least a little bit of hope with the defense, but the run defense needs to improve. And one thing that we did mention on the post-game show is I feel like the secondary guys on the perimeter, they have to do a better job of getting off these blocks. They have to find ways to be able to, disengage and be able to make the tackle. Teams are running off tackle. Teams are throwing out in the flat, screen passes, swing passes, whatever the case may be, which Mike. I mean, that's just an extension of the run game. You need to be able to come off blocks on the outside and make those tackles. So, again, I'm not going to be super critical of the defense right now just because we knew that they were out. They had so many starters that were down. I wasn't expecting them to be the 1985 Bears out there on defense, but hey, look, it is what it is. Move on to next week. I will say this, though. We go from that part, to trying to find some positives. And when you're talking about the defense, Nick Eamon-Worry just continues to shine. Maybe there's a couple plays out there where he had to make additional tackles just because guys on the perimeter weren't coming off their blocks and he had to fill the alley at that safety position. But, Mike, at least if you're trying to find something to be positive about, even if the people that are ready to cancel the season and get ready to go apple picking, I don't know what the heck they want to do on Saturdays if they're done with Gamecock football, at least you have something that should make you smile. And I will say this. Will the people stop saying, oh, he's going to hit the transfer portal? Will you stop with that? Please, it's been 3 freaking games. He's a kid that grew up right down the street. Will you stop anytime when someone does well? Goodness, we had to hear this so much with the running back room a couple of years ago. And Kevin Harris is doing, Marshawn might hit the – stop. Stop with the portal talk, please.
Yeah. Grass always isn't greener on the other side. But a lot of these guys, Beamer's bringing in people who care about the culture here. And I think, let's be honest, the main positive of the defense was Nick. The kid did not give up no matter what the score was. He was flying around. He was passionate. You saw him getting in people's faces within his defensive unit. And that's what you need. We've had guys like that in the past, and that's usually when we've had really good defenses, is when you find those guys who establish themselves as the leaders on that defensive unit, and you'll see them grow in the next couple of years. With Nick, I don't know if he's a talker, if he's a quiet guy and just works hard, or what he is on that defense, but it may not be this season that you see a crazy change, but it may be next season or the third season where Nick is a sophomore, junior. Mm-hmm. You'll see him step up as that leader, and people are going to buy into how his attitude is and how hard he works. And you're going to see that accountability on defense. And I think that's the positive carrying forward is we got a guy who cares about being here. We got a guy who does not care what the score is. He's going to go all out the entire game. And when you have that, it's infectious. We got to get rid of the loose ends, and I don't know who they are, but if they are any loose ends that are the ones putting their head down and giving up when they're down by 30 points, those are the guys you need out of your culture. You don't need them starting in your team. And Nick's not that guy. And I think he'll be one of the main changes and reasons why our defense will be better in the next few years.
And for our baseball historians, you'll get this reference. Wally Pipp. Wally Pipp was the guy that used to start first base for the Yankees. He went down with an injury. Lou Gehrig came in, and the rest was history. So I say that because with R.J. Roderick just being out of the lineup with an injury again, I feel at this point it's hard not to want to put Nick in there instead. I feel like he's earned that spot. I mean, it's been 3 games, but he started the last 2 games against Arkansas and Georgia, and this is what he's been able to do, making plays against. And look, Arkansas, they had their struggles this past weekend, still were able to find a way to win. It's 2 of the better teams in the country. It's not like they're playing tick-tock tech. I mean, he's going out there doing this against some good teams, and I'm excited to see him grow. One last thing, trying to find some positives, Mike. We spent so much time on the offense and some negativity and this and that. Let's give the people even some more positivity heading into this week. Special teams continue to look good, Kai had another completion. It's unbelievable when you look at that.
It was over the middle.
Over the middle, I know, right? I mean, so the crazy part about Kai Kroger, which a lot of people, I don't think knew, you go back to that Tennessee game last year when he was able to have that touchdown pass. Kai actually played quarterback in high school. So he has experience of throwing the football around. We did a Garnet Trust interview with him in the offseason. But in his career now, 3 seasons in a row, he has at least 1 completion so far. Okay. 3 for 3, 86 yards and a touchdown. Not a bad stat line right there for a punter, Mike. What do you think as a former quarterback?
Tell you what, man, if he goes out on top right now, I would stop throwing the ball. He might have the highest completions percentage. It's like me. I have the highest winning percentage of any QB. You go out when you're low, or you go out when you're high.
I love it. And I mean, I'm trying to pull it up right now because it wasn't updated when the last time I checked. But yeah, I mean, Kai Kroger, QBR 100 right now.
Flawless.
100. I believe he led the country last year.
And
He led
completion
the country.
percentage.
Well, he also did that. But Kai put some good numbers up. Let's just put it that way, and hopefully that will put a smile on some people's faces. South Carolina looks to turn the page. They have a huge stretch coming up. Charlotte, of course, this weekend. Then you got South Carolina State, then Kentucky. So you need to be able to not just find an identity, as we keep saying, but you got to be able to find wins. Be able to find wins and feel good about yourself heading into SEC play in a couple of weeks. Mike, appreciate you hopping on with us. We'll do it again soon with GC Live post-game show very soon. Again, my friend.
Appreciate it, Mike.